So now let's move on to question 6. So if you remember your paper 1, paper 1, when did we go through paper 1? No, wrong day. There was a vector question in paper 1, right? At the very end. Question 27 for 5 marks of vectors. Right, there's a 5 marks worth of vector question. Right, then your paper 2 here, there's a 4 marks of vectors here. And technically, part B 3, if you wanted to, could have done it by vectors also. That would have meant that you actually have like 13 marks of vectors question this year. So Cambridge thinks that vectors is a very important concept, and they test it fairly heavily. All right, so those of you who are not very strong in vectors, bad news for you. But Cambridge tests a fair bit of vectors, and across both paper 1 and paper 2 usually. All right, so something for you to take note of. Here they test your position vectors. P is equal to this, Q is equal to this, X is the 0.73 and Y is the 0.34. And they tell you XY is NP plus NQ. Obviously, how many unknowns do we have? We have 2 unknowns here. Therefore, so some students don't understand, don't realize that this question is testing you position vectors, right? But it's testing you position vectors. So what is XY? XY is OY minus OX. Now, in theory, you can do this without actually doing this. You can draw to visualize it. Is it wrong to draw here? No, it is not. It is perfectly acceptable to draw. By draw, I mean sketch that, so that you see if this is point X, right? Which is 7.3, right? And point Y is the 0.34, right? So this is point Y, right? You can see that XY is what? If this is 3.4 and this is 7.3, then obviously we are moving backwards by 4 units, right? And we are moving upwards. So you must remember the correct direction. This is your vector XY, right? So we are moving backwards by 4 units and we are moving upward by 1 unit. And therefore, your vector XY is actually -4, 1. You can actually do it by drawing. I'm not saying that you can't. So if you are not very familiar understanding that this requires position vectors, you can do it that way. Okay, but I suspect that Cambridge just wants you to do this. So OX is equal to 7, 3, and OY is just equal to 3, 4 in terms of their position vectors, and therefore XY is equal to OY minus OX equals to 3, 4 minus 7, 3, which you will realize will get us back exactly what we said just now, right? -4, 1. But from here, how to continue? So XY is equal to MP, which is M times -4, 5, plus NQ, which is N times 2, -3. Simplify this, you will get -4M, 5M, plus 2N, -3N. You do realize you can combine these into 2N minus 4M and 5m minus 3n. And then from here, how do I continue? From here, how to continue? Eileen, from here, how to continue?
You just put like the xy and wait. Oh no, that equals to negative 4 and 1.
This is your position vectors. That means these two, again, you realize it's the exact same idea that was tested in last year's vector question, right? That you must understand that a vector has two components. So in this case, it is a lot easier because position vector, it is vertical and horizontal component. So your vertical component will equate to each other. Your horizontal component will equate to each other. Last year's question was not a bit, but a lot harder because it is not a horizontal and vertical component. It's a A and B component. You must realize that if A component doesn't exist, is equal to 0. But here you can equate the two horizontal and two vertical components. Therefore, you will tell me that negative 4, 1 is equal to 2n minus 4m and 5m minus 3n. And therefore, you will form two simultaneous equations. So 2m minus 4m equals to negative 4. Right? So I'm just going to divide by 2. So I will have n equals to 2m plus 2. That is my 2m minus 2, not plus 2. So that will be my equation 1. Then the second equation I will have is 1 equals 5m minus 3n is equal to 1. That is my equation number 2. And then I will just sub equation 1 into equation 2. So eventually what you will form is a pair of simultaneous equations. Okay? And this is also one reason why I suspect that your question 4, part 3 is not a simultaneous equation where you sub in the values of x to find the values of a and b. Because that is testing too many linear simultaneous equations in the single paper. I don't think that is what Cambridge intended. I'm not saying that is necessarily not the case, but I don't think that is what they intended. Okay? So here you get a pair of simultaneous equation. You sub 1 and 2, right? So you get 5m minus 3 bracket n is 2m minus 2 equals to 1. You will get negative m equals to negative n minus 3 times minus 2 is plus 6 equals to 1, and therefore m equals to 5. And once you find m equals to 5, from here, sub m equals to 5 into 1, you will get n is equal to 2 times 5 minus 2 equals to 8. And therefore, m equals to 5, n equals to 8. So using vectors to form a pair of simultaneous equations, we covered that in our worksheets before. Right? Some of you ask me, say your school never really covered this. Yeah, but obviously Cambridge clearly thinks it's important, right? Okay. Let's move on. Part B is 1 and 2 is very straightforward. A is the 0.46, B is the point -53, -5, -3, C is the 0.8, -4, D is the point -1, Y. Find the value of Y. So the gradient is the same. Okay? So you use gradient formula to go and find. So the first thing you need to find, you need the gradient AB for sure. Right? So don't do weird things. Some of you use AD and BD, which actually will also work in this case because you will still form a linear equation. But the obvious thing to do is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? Is equal to y2 minus, this one you can use A, you can use B, it doesn't matter. x2 minus x1. So I use, this is AB and this is AD, but you could also use BD. Okay? From here, nothing better to do. Simplify first, so you get 9 over 9, which is 1. You will get 1 equals to negative y over 6. Y minus 6 over -5, and therefore y minus 6 equals to -5, and therefore y is equal to 1. Okay? Next, find the length of the line DC. So free 2 marks once again. If you found D correctly, then it's free 2 marks. If you found D wrongly, I think there is an error carry forward. I cannot exactly remember, but there should be. So distance formula or length formula, you can use x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1. It doesn't make a difference. So I'm just going to do x1 minus C is what? X2 square plus y1 minus y2 square, which will give you for those of you who take A math, you can leave your answer in certs. There's nothing wrong with leaving your answer in certs. Okay, but if you don't take A math, then obviously you wouldn't do that. So you will just leave it in 3SF. So 10.3 in 3SF. The most interesting thing about this question that I'm very puzzled by is, notice that they did not write this thing over here when they are supposed to have written it for you. Because they never write units for you, you need to write it. If you are an A-math student, then you should know, because this is always something that you need to write for coordinate geometry, right? But you are supposed to write the units here. I don't know why the units is not written for you. If you go and check other year papers, when it's given in units, they will normally write it for you. So Cambridge here also very inconsistent. Okay, so write the units. It's 10.3 units. Part C is the one that a lot of students also struggle with. But I mentioned this before many times. The moment you see the ratio like that, right? Why they give you the ratio? What do they expect you to use in order to solve the question? Rupert, they give you the ratio here for what? So that you can use what to solve? What strategy does the question want you anytime they give you the ratio or the two lengths? Don't need to tell me about finding any length. Before you find the length, you must understand what concept the question wants you to apply. Or what strategy, rather, the question wants you to apply. There are several different ways here to solve the question, but the most direct way is by applying this particular strategy. Caitlin, any idea?
Find the coordinates of E.
How to find the coordinates of E?
You let it be like xy.
No, then that one too complicated already. It is possible to do it that way, but it is not the direct way. I don't need to let E be anything. I can just look at this ratio and be able to derive what is E going to be already. And that is the strategy that y'all must employ, because why would you want to go and solve it using a long-winded algebraic method when you can just look at it and realize, oh, that is the answer? I look at this. I look at the points given on top. So by looking at the ratio, so it will be 3, 3, 2. So if it's 3, 2, B is -5. So E will be 10, -9. I look at the ratio, I look at the coordinate of A, I look at the coordinate of C. I will figure out that E is just 10, -9. I don't even have to do any working. What method allows you to do that? It's a drawing method. What is the drawing method? You can draw it that way because anytime you see this kind of ratio, you are meant to solve the question by similar triangles. That is the reason why they give you a ratio. And if you take A math, there is no reason not to know that. I feel that this question is very unfair to the E math students. But for A math student, how often do you see A math coordinate geometry questions need to go and find? They give you the ratio and therefore you use similar triangle to go and solve. It is all the time, isn't it? That is the bulk of your coordinate geometry questions in A math. Right? And we did it not just in coordinate geometry, we did it also in proofs of plane geometry. That we realized that a lot of the questions require you to apply your similar triangles. And if you recognize that this is a similar triangle, AC to AE is 2 to 3. That means AE is longer than AC. So I will draw AC. Right? But it also means that if AC is equal to, that means AC to CE in this case will be in the ratio 2 to 1. And so I just need to draw the line. So this is A. What is A? A is the coordinate 4, 6. C is the coordinate 8, -4. So it is in this direction because I know it's 8, -4. So it goes lower. Right? Actually, too high. C needs to be a bit lower. And then what do we know about E? They tell me that the ratio here is 2. That means CE here is 1. So how do I go and find it? By similar triangle, I draw the arrow downwards to get to C. How many units did I move here? From 4 to 8. Sorry, from 6 to negative. Yeah, so my line is not very accurate, but whatever. So this is -10 units. This is plus 4 units. And that is 2. In other words, when I draw from here to here, what will I find? The ratio is 2 to 1, right? So if the ratio is 2 to 1, what do I just need to do? This must be -5, this must be +2. And that is how I can tell -4 -5 is -9. 8 plus 2 is 10. That is how I just look at the values and I know that it's 10, -9. I don't need to do any calculation whatsoever. Y'all want to take how long to find something like that that can be found in less than 30 seconds? Anytime the question tests you this way, why do they give you a ratio? Similar triangles. Okay, the other possibility is adjacent triangles, but obviously this is not adjacent triangles. Right? Adjacent triangles is used with reference to area when you're looking at vectors. This is not clearly with reference to vectors. This is coordinate geometry. Although the question can be solved using vectors. I will show you the vector method later. Okay? Therefore, the coordinate E is by similar triangles. You need to write by similar triangles. By similar triangles, E is just the coordinate 8 plus 2 and -4 minus 5, which will give me 10, -9. 1 mark for finding the coordinate of E. Cannot be worth more than 1 mark one because how long does it take to get? Once we have the coordinate of E, now you can find the equation of the line BE because we already have the coordinate of B, right? So I need to find gradient of BE. So gradient of BE is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When I went through this with the other class, I forgot one of the minus sign and then I got a plus instead. I got a minus instead of a plus. Good job to me. So this will just give me -6 out of 15, which is -2 out of 5. Right? And therefore, equation of BE is y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1. Simplify this, you will get y equals to -2/5x. This is the plus, then the minus. So 2/5 times -9 plus 10 to give me oh, okay, I put that on the wrong side. Oops. This is -10. So this is minus -9. Y2 minus y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1. M times x minus x1. So -2/5 times -10, then -9. You will get -5. That's the answer for 4 marks. If you think about it, the only difficult part is finding E. But actually finding E takes me 30 seconds by similar triangles. So you all must understand how to apply your similar triangles to work questions. Right? There is a reason why they give you a ratio. It's because they want you to apply similar triangles. And for those of you who take A math, there's absolutely no reason to not to know that because that is such a common application in A math. E math students don't know, not a very common application in E math, I forgive them. Right? But even then, vectors, that is a very common application. Not in coordinate geometry so much, but in vectors, that is a very common application. But for A math students, it's so common in coordinate geometry. Right? There is an alternative way here to do it completely by vectors. That's why part A of the question is technically a vector question, right? You could solve this entirely by vector. How do you do this by vector? If you want to do this by vector, life is painful. But it can be done. Let's write down the coordinates first, so that I know what it is. So I will know my OA is equal to 4, 6. I will know my I need OC is equal to 8, -4. And therefore, that gives me the vector AC is equal to OC minus OA equals to 8 minus 4 minus 4, 6 to give me -12. 4, -10. Right? And they tell you that AC is this will mean that AE is equal to, based on the ratio, 3/2 AC. Right? And therefore, this will give you 3/2 for -10. So it is possible to do it by vector this way. You will get AE is 6, -15. And therefore, OE equals to AE is equal to OE minus OA. And therefore, OE is equal to AE plus so OA is 4, 6. AE is 6, -15, which will give me 10, -9. Therefore, E is the coordinate 10, -9. And then once you get this, everything else is the same. In exam, obviously, if you can't find one particular, you can't find using one particular method, there are multiple methods to do it. Right? What Kaylin did, which is to let E be X, X, E, Y, E, and then you go and find things you like using gradient and all that will also work. It is also possible to go and find. That one is a little bit even, that one is even harder because that one requires you to form a pair of simultaneous equations to go and solve for two unknowns, but it can also be done. Right? But the only method that I will ever recommend in the exam setting is just go and know your similar triangles and how to apply your similar triangles to solve geometric questions. That is a skill that you absolutely need to know. Right? Even though you could do it by vectors here, you realize how long does it take me to do the vectors part compared to just by applying similar